Sunshine, smile, oh, oh, oh. Feel the love, just let it flow. Life is good, let's take it slow. Sunshine, smile, oh, oh, oh.
Hello and welcome back to Black Dog Knits episode number 3. Today I'm going to be talking to you about some finished objects that I have. As you see, I have a big pile of things over here that I want to talk to you about, as well as some works in progress that I have going. And then I recently just got back from Rhinebeck, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience, although my friend Lizzie, who I went, actually did a separate vlog of the trip that we took, and so I highly recommend, I will link the video down below for you to go and see her vlog on tips and tricks and everything about it. She does a really nice job recapping it. I wasn't taking as many photos or videos, so I will link something very specific to Rhinebeck if you want to see that, but let's just get started. So today I'm actually wearing my Terrazzo sweater with the actual turtleneck. Last time in my previous episode I was wearing a Terrazzo sweater as well, but I had modified the neck to have a more crew neck style, and so today what I decided to do was wear a turtleneck. It is the fall and it's getting a little cool, and so I went with this sweater, and I knit this sweater back in February, I think. And I used Hikoo Sueno Worsted, which I bought from the Black Dog, or not Black Dog, that's us, Black Sheep Knitting Company in Needham, Massachusetts. They had been doing a Petite Knit along, and so if you bought yarn from them and you knit patterns from Petite Knit, you were entered in for prizes and everything. So of course I participated in that, and so I purchased this yarn from them. This is a 80% wool, 20% viscose or bamboo blend, and it's super soft. I am embarrassed to admit this, but I actually just blocked this yesterday and it came out so nicely. I'm going to show you a photo of it pre and post blocked just so that you can see how nicely it grew. It did grow a little bit more than I was anticipating, but I do like the fit and it's super soft, so it's a nice yarn to wear if you're a little bit more sensitive to wool. This is not a rustic yarn by any means. And I actually think you can put it in the wash, although it makes me a little hesitant to do that. So I hand washed this, but I think that this is technically machine washable, although I don't think it's dryer friendly. And again, I really like turtlenecks. I find them very cozy, especially living in Vermont in the winter. It's really nice to have something around your neck. And so I'm looking forward to getting more wear out of this winter. It does kind of scare me. This is a cream color, to wear this color in all honesty, because I do tend to spill things, and so I will have to be extra careful when I wear this. But overall, I really enjoy this sweater. I've made 2 of them now with different necklines, and I would highly recommend using it or making it. So I guess I will jump into my finished objects first, and I conveniently have my Stockholm sweater right here. This is the Stockholm sweater by Petite Knit, and I made this sweater in the extra small size using the Hey Mama Wolf Skadi Merino wool, which I bought on a trip when I went to London, and this is in the color Henna. This is a super soft wool, so again, kind of like the sweater I'm wearing, this is a really nice wool to wear if you are sensitive to more rustic yarns, and it knits up so beautifully. It's super fun to work with. I really enjoyed making this sweater using the yarn. I don't know if it's sold in the US, I don't think it is. If it were sold nearby, I would definitely be buying more of this yarn. And I only bought 1,000 meters of it, so to prevent a competitive game of yarn chicken, what I did was I bought some pure Gint from our local yarn store, and I used the color dark brown to make this a truly fall kind of festive sweater. And the joke was kind of on me because I ended up having an extra skein of both of them. So I'll decide what to do with that extra yarn, but I just thought that was funny that I bought a different color and ended up having plenty of yarn. But A little bit more about this pattern. This is a DK weight sweater and DK weight yarn that I used for it. In the pattern, it does call for 2 strands of mohair, which is equivalent to a DK weight yarn, and so I used a DK weight yarn instead of using 2 strands of mohair. I really enjoyed using just 1 strand of yarn for this project. I haven't used a lot of mohair in the past. It is something that I am interested in, but it's just not something that I wanted to do for this project, and so I used this DK weight yarn. I was quite pleased with myself because the gauge that I got with this yarn was exactly on for what the project calls for, and so that pretty much never happens for me, so I was very excited that that happened, and I'm wondering if part of it was because I was using a DK weight yarn instead of 2 strands of mohair. I think if I had been using 2 strands of mohair, I probably would have been a bit tight. But that was just kind of a fun thing, and this is knit up on 4mm needles. I have decided that I really like 4mm needles. It is a nice size for just general comfort. It knits up really nicely and I like that it's not super loose, but also it's not so small that your hands are hurting when you're knitting it up. And the cuffs I think are on 3.5mm needles, and the collar is on 3mm needles, I think. And I had done this, I did the body first, and then I did the sleeves, and then I finished it with the collar, and I will say that up until when I actually finished the entire sweater, including the collar, it did look a little funny without the collar, but once you put the collar on, it just looks really, really crisp and nice. Of course, it was done at that point for me, so that makes sense. But I had only made 1 other drop shoulder pattern before. I think it was the Moody Blues pullover or sweater by Turquoise Taupe Designs, and I enjoyed making that. I had never made a drop shoulder sweater before, so I was interested in making another one. And I found that I actually really do like the fit of a drop shoulder sweater, and so I definitely will be looking for more of those patterns in the future. But overall, I'm excited to be wearing this. I wore this sweater to Rhinebeck. I finished it right before, and that was great, so I was able to wear it to Rhinebeck, and I'm probably going to wear it for Thanksgiving. It's just a really nice fall color, nice sweater. So that is my Stockholm sweater. Highly recommend. Everybody kind of raves about this pattern. I think it was one of her earlier patterns, so I definitely think it deserves the credit and the acknowledgement that it has gotten in the past, and I agree with people that it is just a really nicely simple, well-fitting sweater. So my next finished object, which if you can recall from last time I was about to finish this, is my green Arctic light sweater. And this is a pattern that this is now my second pattern that I have knit, or my second sweater that I've knit of this pattern. And this is a pattern by Veronica Lindberg, also known as Kutovakika. I've been watching some of her videos more recently, and she's just I really like her as a person, at least through YouTube. She is just so warm and so thoughtful, and her designs are just so amazing. So it's really fun to kind of knit up somebody's designs who you just like as a person. So I knit this sweater in the size medium because my gauge swatch was pretty tight, and I was kind of aiming to knit this sweater so that it would fall more in an extra small kind of size range, and it was fitting pretty well last time when I tried it on. It was kind of like an oversized sweater, which is kind of how the sweater's supposed to fit, and then I blocked it. This was originally supposed to be my Rhinebeck sweater, and I blocked it. All excited, I was going to be able to wear it to Rhinebeck. This is definitely the most intricate sweater pattern that I've made, and so I blocked it, and then I immediately noticed when I put it out on the mat to block and dry that it looked massive, and that was a little worrisome, but I just kind of went with it. I let it dry. It took a little while for it to dry, as all knit things do, and when I tried it on, it went from being an oversized sweater to just the wrong size sweater, which was really unfortunate, disappointing. I was so excited to wear the sweater. I immediately texted my cousin who I made a white Arctic light sweater for, and I asked her how she felt about the color green because she is more of a medium. size, and she said she's very much in her green and blue era, and so I said that's great because I think that you might be getting a green Arctic Light sweater as well. So I'm happy that this sweater will still be able to go to somebody who is going to love and appreciate it as much, but I was disappointed that the size of the sweater did not turn out the way that I had hoped. This is knit in Berroco Ultra Alpaca, which is a 50% wool, 50% alpaca. And what I was reading a little bit more afterwards is that apparently alpaca tends to grow a fair amount. And I can show you, I'll show a before and after blocking photo of this as well. I think that the body and the sleeves both grew at least 10 centimeters with this. And also the width grew a fair amount as well. I think that I technically probably could wear this sweater. I just think that it would look quite oversized, and that's not really my style, and it was not my intention. So I would rather it go to somebody who it fits a little bit better. And I was determined that this was not going to stop me from making my own Arctic Light sweater once more. So that night that I realized that this had happened, I ordered myself more yarn in the same colorway. I had gone back to the original place where I purchased this yarn to see if I could order more from them, but they were sold out of the avocado color, so I went back to Webs, or I went to their website and I looked for this yarn. In the past, I found that they sell Berroco Ultra Alpaca in their more natural colors, so kind of cream, beige, brown, but I wasn't able to find the other kind of range of colors that they have, and they're just Berroco Ultra Alpaca. That night, however, when I went and searched for it, I saw not only that they were carrying the avocado color, but that it was also on sale. And so it was kind of meant to be. I ordered some more, and I had a little bit left over from this sweater, so I ordered, I think, 4 more skeins of it with the risk that I would have 2 different color lots. And I decided that if the color lots were so different that I would do the collar and the hem and the cuffs and everything with the other older color lot, and then the entire sweater in the newer one that I ordered. And I received the shipment in the mail. It came pretty quickly, and it was kind of bittersweet to receive it because I thought I was kind of done knitting this pattern, even though it's an amazing pattern, that this will now be my 3rd Arctic Light sweater in 3 months. And I looked at it and I looked at the yarn. I thought, wow, this looks really similar to the yarn that I originally bought at a different store at a different time several months before. And I held it up to the leftover yarn that I had, and I thought, this looks identical, this is great, this will be perfect. And I had actually saved a tag from my previous purchase, and I was looking at the lot numbers, and they actually are the same exact lot number. So again, this was kind of like fate, even though it does mean that I am knitting a 3rd one of these sweaters where they are the same lot number. It's going to be great. I'm going to make the right size. I know that this is going to grow a lot now. I blocked my swatch before, but apparently not correctly or for long enough or anything. So I'm going to actually knit myself an extra small with the hope that it will fit like an extra small, just like this fits more like a medium. And so that, I haven't started that sweater yet, but it is in my plans. But you guys are probably tired of listening to me talk about the Arctic Light sweater, so that's going to be kind of something that I work on in the background while I'm knitting other things and telling you about other projects that I have going. So I'll be starting that soon. I had originally made my deadline for this sweater to be Rhinebeck, but I think what I'll do is make my next deadline Christmas, and I think this would be a really nice Christmas sweater to wear as well. So that is my plan with Arctic Light sweater number 3, green Arctic Light sweater number 2. So now I will talk a little bit about my works in progress. I have a sweater that I've been making for my niece whose birthday is coming up quite soon, and I showed you some yarn that I had used for her, or that I decided to use for her sweater last time. And I chose the Loops Threads Carousel Twist color way. That's it up close. And I originally was going to use a pattern, or I think it was a raglan style pattern that was meant for a child, but I decided that I would just go along with my own measurements and math and everything. I had written notes on a sweater that I had made her last year that she's since outgrown, so I kind of based everything off of that. This is a bulky weight yarn, so it's been knitting up really fast. I'm knitting it on 5.5 millimeter needles. And it's just a basic raglan sweater, a lot of stockinette, which is kind of a nice break after doing such an intricate pattern here. And something that I am trying to do with this sweater is practice a little bit with a new technique. Since it is all stockinette, the way that I learned how to knit is to do the fancy way I've heard it described as is English throwing. So every time I knit, I have to hold the needle to wrap the yarn around, and it works pretty well. I've gotten pretty fast at it, but I also know that other people who knit will do continental style, which I've heard is quite efficient, and I love efficiency, so that's something that I've been kind of wanting to learn, although since I already know how to knit the other way, it's kind of hard to convince myself to knit a different way when I know it's going to be slower initially. So for this sweater, what I've been doing is I've been doing kind of little bouts of practice with my continental knitting. I did the entire hem continental knitting, and it feels kind of strange. It is easier doing this now after I've seen a fair number of videos of people continental knitting. It's not necessarily tutorials, it's just that's the way that they knit, and I've seen videos of people doing it, so it has kind of, I don't know, it's just become more familiar in my brain. So I've been practicing that, and it feels kind of like writing with your left hand or your right hand, whether or not you're right or left-handed, where you know how to do it with a different way. So it's almost harder and weirder to do it the other way because you know there's an easier way to do it. But I think that with more practice, this will actually become a more efficient and easier way to knit, especially since I don't have to hold the needle every time that I make a stitch. So that's been kind of my challenge and fun part of this sweater, besides from just making it for my niece, who I think and hope will enjoy and be able to wear this sweater hopefully longer than a year. So I will be giving this to her soon. I just have the sleeves left, so it's pretty far along. Hopefully it will be done by the next time I do another episode. So that's my sweater for her. And oh, another thing that I wanted to share was that the same time that I had been blocking this sweater, I decided to wash my Monday sweater, which I had made out of Berroco Comfort. And when I washed it in the washing machine because it's 50% acrylic, 50% nylon, and it is machine washable, and it's also dryer friendly, which is part of the reason why I chose that yarn. And when I washed and dried it, I took it out and I held it up and I thought, wow, this looks really small. And I don't know if you can tell, it's not on me, but it shrunk a fair amount. I was not expecting that, and it kind of looks like a child sweater now, almost to the point where I'm definitely not going to keep this because it does not fit me anymore. The sleeves are like up to here, the body is way shorter than it should be. It's just not appropriate for me to be wearing, so I'm going to probably either give this to somebody, my sister's smaller than I am, or give it to my niece if it's even too small for her. It's a really nice soft yarn, I really enjoy it, so I was really bummed, and I also really like this pattern, but I would rather not rip back everything on this. I would rather just kind of let it be and give it to somebody else who I love. So I have a fair number of knits that I've been doing and working on, and they are going to be getting kind of passed around the family for various reasons. But I just wanted to share that with you in case you do decide to use Berroco Comfort. You should expect that yarn will shrink if you do put it in the washer and dryer. I had used a low dryer setting and everything, so I really wasn't expecting this to happen, but I just wanted to give you fair warning. And then alternatively and oppositely, the Berroco Ultra Alpaca tends to grow a fair amount as well. So I was kind of Goldilocks in the middle of a too large sweater and a too small sweater, which is unfortunate, but luckily my Stockholm sweater did fit well. Okay, so my other work in progress right now is my first sock, which I'm really excited about. This is this is some yarn that I purchased at Webb's when I went to Webb's with my friend in the spring. This is Wonderland yarns in the color Mary Ann, I believe. It is a wool and nylon blend. I can't remember what the percentages are, but this is intended to be a sock yarn. And I had not made a sock before, besides from when I tried to use 6mm needles to knit a sock off of a YouTube tutorial when I was first starting to knit. And so this will be my first like serious sock. And it's knitting up quite nicely. Last night I did the heel flap and the heel turn, which was pretty cool. And so you can see this is kind of how it's knitting up. And I didn't want to do anything that was super complicated because one, this was my first sock, and two, because this is a really nice variegated yarn that I didn't want to pull away from the colors in the yarn by using a complicated pattern. So I am doing a basic sock by Summer Lee. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. She has video tutorials to go along with different steps. So if you haven't knit socks before, I would highly recommend this pattern. She has different sizes, so you can knit whatever size it is that you want. And again, with a sock, as with many other things that you knit, you can kind of decide how long or short you want them to be. For my sock, I'm knitting it taller because I like to wear socks in the winter that are tall enough to go up to where the edge of my boots are. So then I don't have this weird in between cuff, and then I can't feel the edge of my boots when I'm wearing them with tall socks. So that is kind of my intention with this. And yeah, I was a little hesitant that I would hit a second sock syndrome with these socks, but I am enjoying it so far. And I think that once I knit this one, my friend had pointed out that once you finish the first one, it's kind of like a glass half full, glass half empty situation, where you can either be like, oh, I have to knit another sock, or you could be like, oh, I really want to wear these socks, so I really want to finish the other sock. I think it's going to be the latter for this situation, but we shall see, and I will report back to you when I finish my other sock. Well, this one and the other one. So those are my two works in progress right now. I mentioned last time that I am going to be making my sister-in-law a gray sweater. She requested a crew neck sweater. And originally I was going to just make her another terrazzo sweater with more of a crew neck line, but I have decided that I want to make her to check or not to check, but to use a different pattern with a saddle shoulder construction with a crew that is intended to have a crew neck so that it fits her properly. The one thing that I didn't mention about my terrazzo sweater with the crew neck last time was that the way that I bound off the collar was kind of tight. So every time I put it over my head, I do kind of have to like squeeze it over my head, which is fine, and I don't really mind that, but I feel like as a gift, you kind of want to give somebody something that's the easiest to wear and most comfortable to put on and take off. So I'm looking for a saddle shoulder construction sweater in worsted weight yarn. If you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards probably the Lakes pullover, I think, by Ozetta. And so I'll be starting that soon. The yarn for that arrived recently. I'll be using Heartland yarn in the color Mount Rainier, so I think it'll be a nice versatile sweater for her, and hopefully I'll have it on the needles by the time my next episode comes out. So next, I think what I can talk about is some of the acquisitions that I have from Rhinebeck. Recently I went to Rhinebeck with my friend Lizzie. We drove from where we live to Rhinebeck. It was about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive, and the weather probably could not have been any better. The foliage right now is definitely at peak. I love fall in New England. It just makes me so happy. I can't really explain why, but it just makes me so happy. And so driving was so nice. The skies were so blue. The colors were so vibrant. It made me really happy. I don't really love to drive, but I did really enjoy driving this time just because the views were so nice and there was somebody to talk to, especially about knitting. And so the drive was easy. It was easy to get there. We got to Rhinebeck. It was probably about midday. We weren't able to go to anything on Friday, so we got there on Saturday. It was, I think, about midday, and we brought lunch with us. So we ate right before we went in, and then as soon as we went in, It was quite crowded, although I was worried that it was going to be kind of overwhelmingly crowded and to a point where it was not a pleasant experience, and I was a little worried that that was going to be the case. But I do think because the weather was so nice, people were able to spread out a bit more, and also the weather being nice, I think, just puts people in a better mood too. So I think people were just happy to be there. I was happy to be there. So we went there, we kind of shopped around, we went through all the different vendor booths and everything. And I did buy some things, so I'll share that with you. But I really enjoyed the experience. It was something that a lot of knitters talk about, and it was all over Instagram. People who were not able to go, and companies that sell yarn who were kind of experiencing the mixed, I'm going to Rhinebeck, I'm not going to Rhinebeck kind of conversations with their customers. We're having FOMO sales, and so it's definitely kind of the talk of the town this time of year, and so I'm really glad that I was able to go. And yeah, so I can kind of jump into what I got. I think last time I mentioned that I wanted to get some Aran weight yarn and some Tweed yarn. When I was at Rhinebeck, the yarn that's available at Rhinebeck is beautiful. It's mostly hand dyed, I think, if not all hand dyed, and so the skeins are quite expensive, and I didn't want to buy a full jacket's quantity of yarn, so I didn't end up buying Aran weight yarn, but I was able to find some Tweed yarn that I am quite excited to be using. And so I'll show you the first skein of yarn that I purchased, which is this Fingering Tweed by American U yarn. This is a brown tweed. I think the colorway is called Root Beer, and you can see it's got little flecks of lighter brown and black in it, and I think that what I'm going to do is use this to make some sort of cozy neck garment, because it's starting to get cold here in the mornings. Oftentimes I'm walking dogs, and I would really like and appreciate something around my neck just to keep it a little extra warm if I'm not wearing something like a turtleneck. I have a blue jacket, which is probably no surprise if you've seen my prior episodes and what else I knit, but I decided that a brown color cowl or scarf or something would probably go nicely with that blue jacket. So I purchased this for myself, and will be making something pretty soon with this. I'm thinking I might make the bandana cowl, which is another free pattern on Ravelry, with this yarn to keep myself warm this winter and in the future. So that's the first thing that I bought. The second skein of yarn that I bought is this blue. It's a 60% alpaca, 60%, no, excuse me, it's 60% wool, 40% alpaca. So it's got this nice kind of halo, and also it's quite soft. This is a worsted weight yarn, and I think it's from Good Karma Yarn and Soap. So it actually also smells quite good, which is funny. So I am going to probably make a beanie out of this or something. I think that this is a good beanie color. I really like the color blue, as you know, and also the color gray. My college, where I went to school, the colors were blue and gray, and so I oftentimes find myself wearing blue and gray. Not just for the college, but just because I like those colors. So I will be using this yarn to make some sort of other accessory, and yeah, I really like this. So my other and last skein of yarn that I bought was from Dachshund Daddy Knits, which I just love the name of that store. I think it's hilarious. This is their logo. Hopefully you can see that. And this is the yarn. This is a sock yarn, so it's 25% nylon, 75% superwash merino wool. It's pretty soft, and the colorway is called Coffee Shop. And so I bought this yarn with the intention of making socks for my husband, who loves coffee. A lot of things about this yarn just really spoke to me, so I bought this, and it's actually kind of funny when I put all the yarn together. I didn't realize this, but it was a rather unintentional coincidence that all of my yarns kind of match. If you hold them all together, it's funny. They look quite nice all together. So apparently I was very gravitated towards blue and brown yarn this time. So those are the three skeins of yarn that I bought. There is so much yarn at this festival. I mean, obviously it's the sheep and wool festival, so there's going to be a lot of yarn. And so part of the reason why I wanted to buy some yarn at Rhinebeck was because what I realized is with the merino wool that I bought in London is that when I was working on that project, and also once I had finished it, is that every time I worked with it, or I was working with it, or I was wearing it, was that I was able to kind of recap that trip in my head. And so it's a fun way to be able to remember that experience. And so I wanted to have something similar with Rhinebeck, where I had a project that I could use my yarn for, think about my trip and my experience, special time that I had, and also whenever I wear it, I'll be able to think about it too. So this will be kind of like my Rhinebeck special cowl that I'll be able to make with this yarn, and then likewise with the other yarn that I purchased. So beyond yarn at Rhinebeck, I also was able to purchase some other things. Going in, I had been thinking I really wanted to buy some double pointed needles. For my socks, I'm using double pointed needles, and I tried using a smaller, like a 9mm needle, or not 9mm, 9-inch circular needle to use it, but I didn't love using that. And so I purchased some 7-inch Takumi clover needles, which I thought were really cool because they're so thin. And it was just funny to have such thin needles. And I showed them to somebody, they said those look like toothpicks. And they actually are more like toothpicks, not just because they look like them, but also because they are extremely pokey. And I put them in my bag for when we got to Rhinebeck, and they actually started poking out. And I was like, this is not safe, it's going to poke me, it's going to poke other people. Also, I don't want to ruin my bag, it's one of my favorite bags. So I was like, okay, I have to do something about this. And coincidentally, again, kind of like fate, when I walked in, the second booth that we saw was selling Knit Picks double pointed needle sets, and so I purchased some double pointed needles. I hope there isn't too much of a glare, but I purchased this set of kind of more lace weight double pointed needles. They are painted blue and green, some of my favorite colors. And I purchased these from Ellen's Half Pint Farm, which funny enough is actually in Vermont as well. And they range from size 0 to size 3, US size 3, and funny, or not funny, but kind of confusing is that there are 2 US size 1 and 2 US size 2, so I'm going to have to be careful when I'm using these. Unfortunately, the needles don't say on them which size they are, so I will have to keep these organized, but I'm excited to have a set of double pointed needles. I had learned how to knit in the round actually with double pointed needles when I was first making hats. And so knitting with double pointed needles has brought me a lot of joy recently. When I started my sock, I was really excited because it just kind of reminded me of when I first started making hats and how much I really enjoy using double pointed needles, which maybe sounds a little bizarre, but I was really enjoying using them. And so it was great that I was able to find a set of double pointed needles when I was there, and it is kind of like, I'm in science, so it's kind of like it's been the quote-unquote limiting reagent for some of the smaller projects that I've been wanting to make. I've been wanting to make some mittens, I've been wanting to make some more hats that are not just with bulky weight yarn that I bought initially when I was first starting to knit. And so I think that I'll really be able to use those double pointed needles to make some smaller accessories, which I'm looking forward to. And yeah, I think it'll be a really good kind of staple in my knitting tools and notions. And so I also bought, when I was there, some stitch markers. I had been wanting to have kind of a special beginning of round marker just for fun. It's definitely not necessary, but just for fun. And so my friend actually kind of reminded me of that when she was saying, oh, maybe we'll be able to find some stitch markers. And we saw in one of the bigger tents or buildings, I think it was building B, when we walked in, there were all these little cute handmade stitch markers by Wee One's Creations. And of course I purchased some dog stitch markers, but she had so many different stitch markers. She had dogs, she had cats, she had owls, she had ducks, she had human organs if you're into that. She had so many different stitch markers, and they were all each handmade by her. And so I was able to find some stitch markers that look a little bit like our first dog, Reese. And these, I'll hold it up to you. Hopefully you can see it. This is a dog with the little white on its chest and paws, which is what our dog has. And it also has a little white tip tail, which I think is so cute. And there are 4 in a pack, and 3 of them are sitting, and then 1 of them is laying down, which I think is so cute because our dog that looks like this is kind of lazy, so I thought that that was funny. And so I am really just enjoying having a little wreath on my projects as I'm working. I bought 4 of these. It was a pack of 4 for $30, which I was kind of shocked by when I saw, but then the lady who was selling them was so happy and so excited when we bought them. She was just a very kind lady, and you could tell that she was feeling like, wow, all this work and my life that I put into this is really paying off. And so that made me feel better about spending more on stitch markers. And so these again are from Wee Ones Creations, and maybe she'll be back next year so you can purchase some. If not, I think my friend mentions in her video that they're sold also on Etsy. And so if you're interested in that, you can find that probably from her video as well. So that's kind of my recap from Rhinebeck. I really enjoyed the experience. I'm glad that I went. To be completely honest, I'm not sure if I would go back next year if I didn't live closer. It's something that I feel like I've done it, I've experienced it. I'm really glad that I did it, but I'm not sure if I would go back immediately next year if I had to drive as far as we did, or I guess basically if I had to stay over again. But if I lived closer, I would definitely be going back. Or if I knew more people who were going. It was really fun to go with a friend. If you go, I highly recommend going with somebody who you know, just because I think it's more fun to be able to share your kind of live experience with somebody. I do know that other people go by themselves and they meet a lot of people and talk to a lot of people. People were really friendly. You could just kind of chat with people when you were waiting in lines or just hanging out, but I'm not the most outgoing person in all honesty. So it was really nice to go with somebody who I knew. But I think what I've learned from this experience is that I really did enjoy going to a sheep and wool festival. And so in the future, I think what I would do is not necessarily travel to go to one of these festivals, but I live in Vermont, so there probably are additional festivals kind of similar to this. So it's kind of inspired me to look for more local events like this. Obviously nothing's going to be as big as the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. I think what this has encouraged me and inspired me to do is in the future I'll look for events kind of similar to this. Obviously nothing's going to be as big as Rhinebeck, but I'm going to look for events that are kind of more similar to this and see if I can find ones that are more local. And I think that that would be really fun, just to be able to see kind of what more local hand dyers are making, be able to purchase some more sock yarn or something, and just be able to enjoy the experience. Oftentimes these things are outside, and so I enjoy being outside, so that is a plus. And then also just being able to see all the different people who are so invested in the same craft as you, who are making handmade sweaters as well. It's fun to find kind of that niche and population of people, just because it's not something that everybody who you see necessarily does. It's not like soccer where oftentimes people like it, or I don't know, some more kind of common hobbies. So I do like that these events kind of bring people with like minds all together. But if you've made it this far in the video, thank you for sticking around. I'm sorry about kind of moving around a little bit. The sun is moving as I'm filming this, so hopefully it's not too dark or light or blown out or anything at certain points. But thank you for watching this video. I am hoping to put out these episodes about once every 2 weeks. It might vary a little bit, but I am hoping to put this out about once every 2 Saturdays to kind of update you on my projects, some experiences, anything that I've acquired, yarn and knitting related, and to just kind of share and contribute to what is out there in terms of making patterns and my experiences with them. So thank you for joining. Please feel free to follow me on Instagram, where I post more frequent updates. I am called Black Dog Knits. I'll put it right down below. And if not, I will see you next time. Thanks.